Dominic in California, pronouns are he, him, wants to talk about the proof for the existence of God due to objective morality. So welcome, sir.
Yeah, hi, Matt. Can you hear me?
Yes. And I think Shannon can probably hear you too.
I can indeed.
Okay. Well, before I start and give my explanation, I just want to say that I'm not religious in any way. I do not adhere to or believe in any cultural religion. I found them all to be nonsense, and I hope that one day they can be abolished. But I don't want them to be abolished because the government or groups of people or individuals go out and commit violence against these people for having beliefs. I want it to be abolished because people realize that it is fucking stupid. That being said,
so hang on before we start your minute. I'm going to just go ahead and bulldoze over here for a second because I'm not aware of any government going after. That's not true. But I get what you're saying in how you would like to have it eliminated. But you're calling in
using the government as an example.
Okay. Sure. But the issue here is that you called in. I thought you called in to prove that God exists. It says here that you're a theist. It says here, Dominic, hang on. It says here you're a theist and that you're calling in to prove the existence of God due to objective morality. Are you ready to do that?
Yeah.
Start the clock.
So there's something called natural law, also known as karma, also known as consequentialism. And this is the highest proof for a creator in the universe. Because without the creator believing in what you guys believe, that such law and order could exist by chance is so small, it's almost ridiculous. Because the truth is, we live in such a perfect, harmonious, orderful universe that, as I said, it simply could not have been here by chance. There are actions, or there are invisible laws, rather, that govern the behavior of beings with high enough levels of intelligence to understand them. That means they essentially do not apply to animals. They only apply to beings like humans and beings of other higher intelligences. And what these laws are, or the most basic laws, is essentially right from wrong.
Okay, stop.
Okay.
So we used up your minute, and in your minute, you talked about natural law, and then karma, and then consequentialism, and saying those are the highest proof for a creator. And then you went into a sort of teleological argument about without a creator, believing such law and order could be chance is ridiculous. And then saying there's invisible laws governing beings with high enough intelligence to understand them. So you called in to prove there's a God due to objective morality, and you did not present anything having to do with objective morality. You just at most alluded to it. If you talk while I'm talking after I gave you your full minute, I will just drop you like a hot rock. Believe that. So your argument here is not an argument. I don't see that it's structured as an argument. It's just a list of assertions. For example, Shannon, do you think that karma is real?
No.
Yeah, neither do I. And so when you, caller, Dominic, assert that there is such a thing as karma and that this is the highest proof of a creator, then you've just cited a proof that neither of us accept, and you did nothing to demonstrate it. How can you fix that?
There's a broader problem, too, when you say that there's laws that exist in the ether. We don't have any evidence of how we would have access to those, even if that were the case.
We have the means to understand right actions from wrong actions.
So how does that exist outside of us, though? So you said basically that there's a standard that exists outside of us. How do we have access to it?
Well, it's pretty easy. We observe effects and actions in the universe, and we see what their results were.
That's just internal cognitive deliberation. That's cognitive deliberation based on observation.
Shannon's asking you for what's the external thing?
Yeah.
So if you commit an action and you determine whether or not the action caused harm or good, that is how you determine it. And
yeah. Okay.
there are.
So the problem here, Dominic, and this is what Shannon's trying to point out, is that even when we ask you, what is this objective external thing that isn't just us making assessments, what you've described is us making assessments.
Bingo.
Now, neither of us are convinced that karma is real, or that you've done anything to prove a creator, but both of us accept that there are moral views and that we evaluate situations and actions and the consequences of those actions with respect to a particular goal. What our position, well, what my position is, I don't want to speak for both of us, is that you can make objective assessments about those actions, but the standard is ultimately subjective. Like, you know, if we say well-being is the standard we're going to use, it is subjective that we picked that one instead of some other. So how do you fix that?
It is 100% not subjective. And I will explain why.
Dominic, I swear I'm completely unimpressed with you constantly making assertions. Make an argument and present some evidence, or we're not going to do this.
Okay. So are you familiar with what a right is?
Rights are things that are granted by a governing body.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are. You can say all day about what right you think you have, but what rights you have are whatever is guaranteed by the government. If you claim to have a right that isn't guaranteed by the government, what you're claiming is that you should have that right, but you don't currently.
I think he might mean a moral right as like right as opposed to juxtaposition to wrong. Is that what you mean, Dominic? As opposed to you mean right as in a good thing?
No, I mean a right. A right is any action that a human being can make that is not a wrong.
Okay, so what I said.
Okay, so yes, you're agreeing with Shannon and not me, because you're talking about rights in a different way. Okay. So start again.
Yeah.
Okay.
So as I'm trying to explain, a right is any action that is not a wrong.
Okay.
And so in order to understand.
Okay, so I'm going to reject that because if you were to say that some actions are right in the moral sense and some actions are wrong in the moral sense, aren't there also actions that are neither right nor wrong?
No.
There are no actions that are neither right nor wrong. So what you're saying is that every moral philosopher in history that tried to group things into moral, immoral, and amoral were all wrong. Nothing is amoral. So when my action is to eat vanilla ice cream, you're saying that is either a moral right or a moral wrong?
Yeah, or me just raising my hand. That was an action.
That is a right.
How
are you defining right? Like, are you saying anything that would be described as morally neutral just gets lumped in with right?
In order to know what a right is, as I was going to explain, in order to know what a right is, we need to know what a wrong is. And the list of wrongs that a human being can commit are so small, it's almost ridiculous. So here they are.
Oh, it's ridiculous. All right. You're way deep in the ridiculous right now.
No, here.
List off the wrongs and how you know they're wrongs.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm interested in that, because otherwise you can still align with what Matt and I believe, which is that the system itself is arbitrarily defined. But once you agree upon a goal, you can make objective statements about that goal. You haven't gotten us to where the goal itself is objective. You're just defining things internal to the system and not explaining why the system itself is objective.
So give us your wrongs.
Murder, rape, assault, trespass, lying, willfully lying, coercion, and theft. Those are the wrongs. Those are things that no human being has a right to do.
That's okay.
Initiate harm on others.
Stop, Dominic. Are you suggesting, because you put lying on this list, that there are no circumstances under which lying is a moral good?
It is not correct to lie to someone when you are willfully restricting or withholding information from them that they would make a decision or a better decision with otherwise.
So when the Nazis come looking for Anne Frank in my attic, it is morally wrong for me to lie and say that she's not here.
That's not what I said.
It is what you said, sir. If you go back and listen to what you actually said, you said that lying was wrong if I was giving someone false information with which they were going to make a decision. I'm intentionally giving those Nazis false information with which they're going to make a decision. I described a scenario under which lying would be a moral good.
Right. Well, okay. I'll agree with you, because I never said that it was moral to help Nazis or any government goons.
No, sir. Dominic, you said that you made a very short list of wrongs: murder, rape, assault, trespass, lying, coercion, and theft. And then I went to lying. And first of all, I would point out that murder is a legal thing and not a moral thing. We spend a lot of time arguing about what should and shouldn't count as murder. But I gave you examples of lying being morally good, and you started by disagreeing, and now you're agreeing with me. So should lying be on your list, or should only lying in some circumstances be on your list?
Lying when you are intentionally withholding valuable information to a person that will help them in their lives, help them make a better decision for themselves, is wrong, is what I'm saying.
Okay, Dominic, can I interject for 1 sec? Because I think I kind of figured out.
I no longer give a fuck about Dominic's opinions. I want them to be backed by something. So it's all you.
I think I get. So, Dominic, it seems as though you're grounding your moral system in harm avoidance. So harm avoidance or reduction, one of the two, if not both. So you're saying that anything that causes harm is definitionally a moral bad, and anything outside of that would be a moral good. Is that, like, yes or no? Is that correct?
Essentially.
Okay, so I think I'm understanding what you're saying. So I would probably agree with you on that, but that still doesn't get us to your initial statement. Your initial statement is that that's objectively the case and exists in the ether somewhere outside of us. And I don't understand how we couldn't just cognitively deliberate our way to understanding that to be the best system, because we ourselves don't want to be harmed, and also exist in a society where if we consistently engage in harmful activities towards other people, then we cause damage to the society, which prevents us from being able to thrive within that society. Like, all of these things can be ascertained through internal deliberation. They don't need to be externally accessible and exist out in the universe as some sort of, absolute truth. They're something that can be come to through deliberation. Do you not think that this is something that could come to through deliberation? Like, it needs to be some sort of magic?
It's not some sort of magic. It's just the underlying force of creation or nature that made it this way. If you want to,
so you're just kind of describing the circumstances as they are. So you're saying, because circumstances are as they are, this would be a good moral system to follow. But that doesn't answer my initial question, which is, can you explain to me how this couldn't become through simply through careful analysis and cognitive deliberation? Why does it need something outside of that to be the case?
Because these things are beyond human control. We don't get to decide that murder is wrong or rape is wrong. Those things.
Why not? Why don't we get to decide that? Because I would argue that we did decide that.
Because
I'd argue that nobody else could decide that.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, no one else could decide that, because it's already the way it is. And we as human beings need to...
Is it the way it is because we recognized that harm is bad for us and those around us and prevents us from thriving as a society, and came to the determination that it's a thing that maybe shouldn't happen? And as a result, collectively decided we shouldn't do it, and built legal systems and societal structures around recognizing that as the case? Because that seems to be a really parsimonious way of looking at it, and makes sense and explains all of the variables that you put on the table.
Yeah, you can't just come in and say things are wrong and that's the way they are and it's objectively true. You need to actually make a case for this. And right now, the only case is that Dominic made a list of 7 things, So is Dominic our source? When Dominic, by the way, on your list of things, I can come up with trivial examples where theft is the right thing to do, where coercion is the right thing to do, where trespassing is the right thing to do, where lying is the right thing to do. I haven't bothered to sit around and try and come up with one for murder, rape, or assault, but at least 4 of your things, I can easily come up with scenarios under which they are the most morally correct thing to do that both of us would agree is the most morally correct thing to do. If I'm having a heart attack and we're out in front of a CVS pharmacy that's closed, and Shannon breaks the glass, trespasses on their property, steals a defibrillator, brings it out and saves my life, hasn't Shannon done all moral actions?
In that instance, if breaking into the CVS pharmacy and stealing whatever they have, then yes, that is immoral.
Sweet. So now you've agreed with me that morality is that morality is situational and not universal, and that your objective list of no, sir, I'm still talking. Do you hear me talking?
Yes, and I was trying to ask you a question.
Well, I'm trying to finish talking. So who do you think's going to win here?
Okay.
4 of your 7 things, you just agreed there are situations where they're not wrongs, which means that you are agreeing that the moral assessments are situational and not universal. And you haven't done anything to demonstrate that they are objective rather than subjective. And even if you could demonstrate that they're objective, that still doesn't get you to, therefore, there's a God. Do you see where I'm stuck?
Well, it doesn't have, you don't have to call it a God. You can call it a higher power, the underlying force of creation, the grand architect of the universe, whatever you want to call it.
I want to call it none of those things because there's no evidence that there is a force or a power or a fucking architect. Why on earth can you, if you called in to demonstrate that there's objective morality, I'm going to put another minute on the clock, and I'm going to give you exactly 1 minute to present a syllogism that supported by evidence that demonstrates that there is objective morality that leads to whatever your conclusion is. Go ahead.
The only evidence we can observe is the effects that I was talking about. And I guarantee you every scenario you would have possibly given me would have been in defense against some sort of initiator who was already initiating harm against.
So what?
And those
no, stop the clock. You get no more time, Dominic. You have no clue what you're talking about, and you don't have a sensible model for morality, and you're trying to use an unsensible model to prove something that you can't prove even with a sensible one. You're not getting another minute, because when I ask you to present a case for something supported by evidence, all we've gotten is assertions that this is the way it is, that all we can do is observe facts. And, you know, all the scenarios that Matt gave might have been in defense. So what? It doesn't matter whether it's in defense. That means that it's situational and not universal, which means your list of things that are always wrong is wrong, right?
No.
Well, I'm sorry, sir, but no. You made a list of things that were always wrong, and I provided scenarios where they weren't wrong, and you agreed with it, which means your list of things that are always wrong is wrong.
Yeah, and I think I know what you're doing, Dominic. You're starting from, like I said, we agree that you're starting from either harm prevention or reduction, and then you're working backwards based on the situation that's posited from that goal, and then deliberating to find out whether or not something is moral based on that as your baseline. So I'm not sure why you need that to be something absolute external to our ability to think. Perhaps it's just because humans think it's scary when things are up to us because we're so prone to making mistakes and poor deliberations. And if it's something absolute external to us, then we can say that, okay, well, we're pointing at something definitive and it's not up to us, which is, you know, could be terrifying because we're so frequently wrong. And people want that to be the case. But I think that the most effective way to become a more moral society is to accept the fact that we need to agree upon the goal and work backwards so that we can make effective deliberations, because saying that there's something we don't even have access to that exists external to us, that is what morality is, doesn't answer any of those questions, and in fact actually muddies the waters. It complicates the dialogue and prevents forward progress, because we're arguing about the minutia of the details of who has access to what instead of agreeing upon a goal, which is a better way to create and implement moral systems.
Okay.
Okay. Good agreement then. We can end on that. Yay. Positive note.
I mean, I don't agree, but we could end there because I'm starting to have a hard time understanding you. My phone's starting to cut out.
Oh, okay. Well, we can end for that reason as well. Thank you for calling.